Good evening. It's July 19th, 2020 at 6:04 p.m. and I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order. And we'll move right to public comment. So if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand in your video or use the hand raise function provided by Zoom. All right, we'll go with Jenny.
Thank you, Chair Brackett. Hello, everybody. I just want to make three quick points. I'd like to support, because of his extensive experience, Nathaniel Mulcahy as a member of the Conservation Commission. I've seen his work in action in the community and support his membership. I'd also like to mention I am an advisor at the Green Community Task Force, and I'd like to support Jerry Shafstein as a member of the Green Community Task Force. I think there are a number of us also here from the Unitarian Universalist Church in town, and he was a founding member of the Climate Action Group, as well as having extensive experience. And lastly, I read the policy carefully that the Select Board had developed around serving on 3 committees, and I was here at the last 2 Select Board meetings. And I'd really like to urge the Select Board to reconsider their vote on Tom Mikas's exception. And I ask this for 2 reasons. One is that rightly so, the Select Board did include in their policy the ability to make exceptions, as they did for another resident at the last meeting. But I also noted that Tom Mikas had his hand up for quite some time at the last meeting and was not called on to speak on his own behalf. And I'd like to encourage the Select Board to ask for his own word about why he should serve on more than 3 committees, including the importance of the chair of the Green Community Task Force. Thank you so much.
Jenny, can you state your name and address for the record?
I apologize. Jenny Amory, 8 Andrews Hollow.
Thank you.
I would like to point out he did have time in public comment at the end of that meeting to speak up, and he did not raise his hand during that time. So I'll move on to Nathaniel.
Thank you, Chairman Brackett. Thank you, Jenny, for those nice words. I too would like to speak in support of Tom Mikas. This process of volunteering for the Conservation Commission has been very thorough, very detailed. I appreciate the care with which the town of Rockport is doing this. I understand that part of the policy, part of the reasoning behind the policy was to encourage more people to run for these volunteer positions. But there are many vacancies right now throughout the town, which are not being filled. So it seems to be counterintuitive that why should we have fewer members on the board when there are already many vacancies that we're having a hard time filling. I think if the idea behind having somebody not serve on multiple committees is to have people feel free to volunteer, I think the many vacancies that we've not successfully filled yet speaks to the fact that there aren't flows of people pounding on the doors waiting to fill those spaces. And so until we have a surplus of volunteers, we need to keep things moving. And Tom's great experience is certainly something that I'd rather not see the town of Rockport pay for. I'd rather him continue to be exploited and do his work for free. So my vote is for Tom for economic and moral reasons. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nathaniel, can you give your name and address for the record?
My pleasure. Nathaniel Mulcahy, 7 Dean Road, Rockport, Massachusetts.
Move on to Dan.
Dan, you've been unmuted. Can you state your name and address for the record?
It's not Dan Peering, it's Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street, at Dan Peering's computer, and thanks to him. At the Government and Bylaw Committee meeting yesterday afternoon, at the very end of the meeting, a prospective candidate to fill the vacancy on that committee was introduced, a man named Greg Quistad. KVISTAD, I believe, a retired university provost recently from Colorado. And it was announced that he would be filling the vacancy and had been working for some time with the chairman, Lori Kaiser. Certainly, I'm not against Mr. Kristad in any way. He seems eminently qualified and would be an addition to the Government and Bylaw Committee. But as a member of the committee, Zena Seppala pointed out, the position was never announced as being vacant or advertised for others to offer. And I too would remind you of your vote a week ago, not to say that it was right or wrong on allowing people to serve on more than 3 committees. And the reasons brought forward against allowing such service are that more people should have a chance to serve. And this is exactly the same principle in slightly different circumstances. It will turn into a closed shop, an inside club, like the Board of Appeals, if the nominations for the Government and Bylaw Committee are solely the province of the existing members of the committee. And it may be that we face a situation such as we did when we hired Mitch Vieira as town administrator. There he was the whole time as assistant town administrator, and we spent a considerable time and effort going through a proper process to give other people a chance and to see what we had in the way of options out there. And having circled the bush 5 times, there hidden in plain sight was Mr. Vieira. And it may turn out to be exactly the same thing with the Government and Bylaw Committee, but we need a proper process and people need to be given a chance to offer to serve. Everyone needs to be given that chance. Also, about the actual appointment itself, it's not something within the purview of your board. It's unlike all other appointments. It's done by an appointing committee consisting of the moderator, the chair of the Finance Committee, and the chair of the Board of Selectmen. And typically they meet in the, during the working day when no one can attend who works. And although it is posted as a meeting, generally Mr. Seppala and myself are the only members of the public attending. And yet we're told that the Government and Bylaw Committee is very important to the town, and obviously, if that's true, who serves on it is important too. And I'm asking you, Ross Brackett, since you're a member of the appointing committee, to insist that this time round, when it comes to interviewing the candidates, whoever they may be, Mr. Kristad or anyone else, that it be done by the appointing committee jointly at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, so that you would be on Zoom and the public would know who the candidates are, what their qualifications are, and whom we're getting. Could I have a response on that, please?
Yes, I'll look into getting that done for you. I'll make sure, we're in a joint meeting if possible, and the interview is done at a reasonable time for the public.
Thank you very much.
Is that all, Toby? Yep. All right. And Chip?
Thank you, Chairman Brackett. Chip Tarbell, 24 Old County Road, Rockport. Mr. Chairman, I may be bringing up subjects that are a little bit before your time, a little bit of a historical preview. I was a member of the LBIC, which a number of years ago looked at the seawall here on Long Beach. And the LBIC presented to the board our findings. And at the end of that, during Selectwoman's Donnelly last term, she brought up some interesting and valid points about the design that was being proposed, and asked if we could look into foreign countries or things like that that have done other seawall repairs and rebuilds and what that might look like. My question or comment is, I don't know what has ever happened to that proposal or comment from Ms. Donnelly, but we on the committee were thinking we might be retained to look at that or something else. And To the best of my knowledge, nothing has come of that. Since then, we had a sinkhole at the wall. And Mr. Parisi, when he was head of DPW, fixed it with actually some of the findings of emergency repairs that were brought forward in our presentation. And since then, he also brought FEMA in to look at the situation and look at the wall. FEMA then granted, well, it's questionable whether it was granted. We got issued a $2.6 million reward. Then during the award process, there was a number of questions and concerns that came up. So they thought an environmental assessment and historic preservation report should be done before actually awarding it. And at the last that I know, they were still waiting for Rockport's reaction and or plan of action to follow those reports. And I'm curious what has happened with that. So that's kind of my seawall historic preview. And the great question here at the beach is what is happening with it? So then we go to last year. We had a great forum, I guess I would call it, with Chairman Campbell and members of the beach, kind of airing our opinions on what may or may not happen at the beach with the next lease situation. And at the end of that meeting, he clearly stated, don't worry, sit on your seats, wait for the next meeting to be held. There will be more chances for you guys to speak. To the best of my knowledge, nothing has happened yet on that front. And that's been a while. And I was wondering what was going to happen there. And then the greatest elephant in the room is what are your guys' thoughts and feelings on our next lease? There's a lot of questioning down here at the beach as to, what are they doing? How's it going? None of which we can answer because we have no idea. But kind of what you're thinking and how the process is moving forward. It's amazing how quickly time flies. And when we first started talking about this, the lease was going to be up in 5 years. Now it's up next year. So there is some questions there. And then I guess my final question is, now that I've posed all these questions, do I expect responses? Do I not get responses? What can I do for follow-up?
I'll give you a small response. I mean, I can't give you any information about the wall. As you said, I wasn't around then. As for Mr. Campbell, his word's still true. We are going to start the process and get you guys in here for more comments, as well as the public themselves, not just the Long Beach owners. And for the progress on the lease, that's, we'll be working on that. We're not going to throw you any, anything off the wall. We can't discuss that. We'll be discussing that amongst ourselves in a later date. So.
I was around 10 years ago when we negotiated, well, not negotiated, but put together the new lease, and we had some public comment there, and as well advertised. We had workshops, so I suspect that we'll follow that same process, and everyone will have it out.
Short-staffed at town hall, so we're just, we're trying to hammer that out. Then we'll be moving forward with some heavy hitting targets that we have to get going on. So
yeah, good, thank you.
All right, next is B.
Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Sure. B. Reardon, 9 Ridgewood Road. I'm here tonight to describe my discouragement with the way my interest in appointment to the Board of Health has been handled. I was told that the selectmen have the final say, but since my name doesn't appear on tonight's agenda, I understand that the selectmen are not planning to independently assess the candidates for this vacancy. I bring to you concerns about the Board of Health's process to make its recommendation and to highlight the need to make mental health a priority within the Board of Health's charge to promote and protect health in our community. And I want to be clear, I have no wish to malign Dr. Cahill in any way, who's the other candidate for that position recommended by the Board of Health. After the Board of Health interview, during which each board member posed the same question to Dr. Cahill and myself, comments were made that were directed at me but for which I was not given an opportunity to respond. One board member declared their interpretation of my concerns about mask effectiveness and vaccine verification requirements led them to believe that I would oppose CDC recommendations, which the Board of Health follows. During the past 15 months, I have written letters and spoken at Board of Health meetings to share my professional concerns about the harmful impacts of mask mandates on our children and on the psychologically vulnerable. Bringing forth data that questioned the effectiveness of masking was always in the context of investigating whether the benefits outweighed the harms. There are differing opinions in the research community on masking. CDC national guidelines serve as a starting point for our local investigations, but it is reasonable to review further data and research. Serious investigation is needed when mandated behaviors are considered. Someone willing to put forth alternative ideas should have a welcomed place on the Board of Health. My concerns about vaccine verification policies is that any such policy should show a compelling evidence of reduction in community health risk to justify different rules for vaccinated and unvaccinated to attend public events. The vaccinated, as we know, can transmit COVID, especially as the vaccine effectiveness wanes. In my opinion, a testing protocol for all would be more consistent with a health protection policy. This is what I described before the board over time. I was told in this interview that I should have spoken more about things other than mental health. Yet this is the expertise I would bring to the board, just as Dr. Cahill brings his veterinary experience. I was told by another member that they hoped I would volunteer in the schools where there is a great need. This comment demonstrated a misunderstanding of my role as a psychotherapist working in this community. That precludes me from working with current or future clients as a professional peer due to the sensitive nature of what they have shared with me in therapy. Another member chimed in that a regional social work position would be filled to bring mental health expertise before the board, again demonstrating a lack of understanding as to the difference in types of social work and the unique contribution of specialized training and years of experience that I would bring to the board. These misconceptions were left unchallenged as I was not allowed to respond and were factors in the board members' stated reasons to decide against my candidacy. In reading through the last 2+ years of Board of Health minutes, it is clear that the pandemic issues have greatly surpassed any environmental or specific animal-related issues that have come before the board. So how can the selectmen respond to what I have just presented? You can consider what priorities need to be addressed by the Board of Health and choose the candidates strongest in that area. I will boldly say that mental health needs should take priority over animal-specific and general environmental interests, since there can still be mental health harms from implementing mandates. You can ensure that the Board of Health process for reviewing interested applicants is fair, with each applicant being given the opportunity to respond to any specific concerns that will be the basis of making a final decision. And you can encourage rather than discourage dissenting viewpoints, especially those based on direct experience and data provided from reputable sources. And finally, you can be the check on the unelected Board of Health and make this appointment reflect these priorities, a fair process, and the needed diversity. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, B. Next is Linda.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Selectmen, for the opportunity to speak. I would like to speak in support of the concerns raised by B. Reardon and speak on behalf of townspeople who, should she not be allowed to hold the seat on the Board of Health, will be deprived of her vast, deep, rich experience in the area of mental health. A quick look at her resume brings to mind certain aspects of her background. She's board certified. She was once the president of the Massachusetts Academy of Clinical Social Work. She directed a children's outpatient clinic. She served as a clinician in a psychiatric outpatient clinic. She's been in private practice since 1987. In short, we here in Rockport are unimaginably fortunate that someone with her depth of experience and background would step forward for this position. And it distresses me greatly to think that the only reason she would be passed over for this is because politically she does not fit in with a certain prevailing narrative that seems to be carrying the day among those who have the say over this board in Rockport. I challenge the selectmen tonight to search your heart and ask yourself if you have doubts about the fairness of the process whereby the Board of Health held its proceedings. Clearly, if Ms. Reardon was presented with questions and objections to which she had no opportunity to respond, then the process has not been fully completed, whereby a vote on her appointment can properly be made. And so in support of her and in support of the needs of those of us in Rockport for the best possible candidate with the most relevant, seasoned experience to bring to bear on this, I ask you to consider waiting on this vote until she has the full opportunity she deserves to answer to any and all objections, concerns, problems with her candidacy. She has a practice in Rockport. In Gloucester. Gloucester is her practice. Day in and day out, families, children, individuals of all ages come in and out of her office, unloading their pain and their struggles, and many of which recently flow from the challenges of living through this pandemic. Who better than her can possibly speak to what that is all about? How those people in our own town could be helped, how better decisions might be made in the future. So I plead with you and thank you again for your time to conduct this in as fair a way as possible. Thank you very much.
Linda, could you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Linda Meditz, 98 Main Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Laura?
Laura Evans from 77 High Street in Rockport. And I did listen to the last selectman meeting, and I have a comment about the exemption that Tom Meekus requested and was denied. I want to correct the record with a couple of facts because it doesn't seem like everybody knew what was going on. Tom Meekus has served on the Ad Hoc Water Committee for 7 years, I think, 5 to 7 years. And he's a very talented, knowledgeable volunteer, very valuable to the town. And he started asking me, I'm the chairman of the Ad Hoc Water Committee, and he started asking me right after town meeting this year about getting the appointment letters. And I wrote to Debbie Powers and copied the town administrator in multiple times in May and in June requesting those letters. So at the last selectman meeting, I think Selectman Brackett mentioned that it was kind of a slight to the selectmen that Mr. Meekus had just been appointed on July 1st. I have to say that he had been requesting that appointment since April. And I'd been requesting to the town, and I know there's been a change in the staff and et cetera. And it was on July 1st that I finally wrote to Mr. Bisnick and said, please send us an email so our committee can work. And that's the reason why we all got appointment letters on July 1st. But it was a process that was long in the making. And I would ask the selectmen to please reconsider that vote, because it just seems like the new rule is being selectively applied instead of uniformly applied. And secondly, I also want to note that I have volunteered for the Conservation Commission some months back, and did go have the meeting with the town attorney and look forward to meeting with Mr. Vieira. It was supposed to happen yesterday, but it couldn't happen because unfortunately I got COVID diagnosis on Sunday. So we're not having an in-person meeting, and Mr. Vieira wants all the meetings to be in person. So hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. And I want to thank you for the opportunity and urge you again to reconsider Mr. Mikas's exemption. I think it's a major loss to the town if he can't volunteer for the 4 committees he's choosing to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Don, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you very much, Chairman Brackett. And I'd like to say hello to my former colleagues who are now friends. It's nice to see everybody. You're doing a great job. Ross, you don't look as good in that chair as I do, but we'll get through this one. Second of all, I would like to say,
Don, can you do the name and address, please?
oh, so that's right. I'm sorry, Monty. Don Campbell, 5 King Street Court. Wow, I was used to not doing that, but that's okay. So I'd like to just say that, if I tried to get into any more depth of what B. Reardon said, I would be doing her a disservice. She stated it eloquently. And in my 6 years on the board, having heard a lot of presentations, she was very even keeled, and her qualifications are eminent for that position. I understand the process, obviously. But if something should change, I think B really is the candidate that should be given every consideration, as her services are needed now more than ever. And lastly, I will say that there's a lot of talk about Tom Mikas and having him come back on boards and everything. I was there for that policy change, and that was done to keep the process fair for everybody and to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to serve. I don't need to remind this Board of Selectmen and others that the town was sued for salting boards, as it was proposed, allegedly salting boards. Well, I say, isn't this the same thing? There's no difference here. We're salting boards with people we want to put on them or don't want to put on them. So everybody should have an equal opportunity to serve on those boards. And I think that, Paul, you made the right decision. I think the policy should stand, and it takes courage to stand by and do the right thing, but I know this board has that courage. So thank you, and it's good to see everybody tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don. Z will be the last public comment for this section. We'll take another one at the end of the meeting if you'd wish. During the second section. Go ahead, Z.
Thank you. Z Sepula, 92 Granite Street. I guess I'm going to take off. Well, I'll leave these headphones on. Yes, I want to comment about the Board of Health interview session for the vacant member and the fact that it was a departure from the Zoom meetings. So I don't necessarily fault the members of the Board of Health for the way they conducted their meeting. But once again, for the 70th time in Conference Room A, those people in the audience that are trying to listen and hear what is being said, which is the purpose of public meetings in the first place, cannot hear. Ruth George, who was on the receiving end of the applicant's voice transmissions, spoke up 5 times during the meeting saying that she couldn't hear what was being said. Now, she, I guess, was on a phone call from Maine or something, I found out. But I was in the room 20 or 30, well, 10 feet away from the people, and I heard probably about maybe 10% of what that meeting, or what was discussed at that meeting. So I'm very disappointed with the process, particularly insofar as the fact that I've made complaints about the audio in that room for going on 7 or 8 years. The thing that I was told is that there is some type of problem with the public address system. Mitch knows about it. He told me about it. But to my mind, it still is a problem. And what I found out is that if the town cannot get proper video or audio transmissions, there are mechanisms relatively inexpensive that you can buy, like a tour guide, a personal amplifier, a voice amplifier, $30 or something that anybody could hook into. And even if they speak like this, they could still be heard. And so I would like to just say that I was disappointed in the process and hope that'll be done about it some year. only other thing I wanted to say is that I hope that the Board of Selectmen will ask for a written synopsis of that Board of Health meeting, the questions that were asked and the answers that were given. Because the meeting has not been recorded, it's lost to history. All we have is Ruth George, Ross Brackett, and me to testify as to whether or not we thought it was great. And anybody else cannot ever hear what was actually said. So I think that at the minimum, there should be a written synopsis from the Board of Health, what questions they asked, what the answers were, and then take it from there. I think there's other people that have spoken much more eloquently than me on this. I'm still harping about issues that I've harped about for 20 years. But anyway, that's my feeling about it.
Thank you,
Thank
Z.
you.
And I do one more. He was raising his hand physically, and I saw it at the last moment, and I think it was Dan Aparo. If we can unmute him real quick. I caught him in the last second after I said my comment, so we can go to him if he's still in the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll keep this very short. Town Administrator, Mr. Vieira, I left you a note this morning.
And I wrote you an email back a little while ago.
Oh, do you want me to make a formal presentation to the board, or do you want to handle this administratively?
We're just taking care of it. We're looking with the police in CADA for use.
Okay, I'll take care of all that. And again, it's a comfort level that you have. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. All right. We'll move
Mr.
on.
Chairman, may I just jump in for 1 second regarding Mr. Zeppela's comments? I remember in conference room A about, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, the board members, when we were meeting, we used to have microphones on our lapels or our shirts. And I don't know if that was when cable TV used to cover our stuff, but that might help.
He did bring mention of that.
That's what it's tied into.
And he wants, also the public to, because sometimes you can't have the public that speak too as well. So,
Okay, we're trying to sort out.
That.
We're trying to sort out separating the two. It's one system because
Right.
when it was originally put in, it was just for cable to be able to broadcast. So we're working on having, figuring
It's a
out
valid
what
concern.
the
In my
system
opinion, it's a
is.
valid concern.
So, yep,
Thank you.
it's being worked
All
on.
right. We'll move on to the National Grid hearing area of 2 Granite Street. I'll take the motion first, then I'll read the
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the board open the National Grid public hearing.
I'll second that.
any discussion. Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
and Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
All right, the public hearing's open. I'm just going to read the public notice. Town of Rockport Board of Selectmen public hearing, July 19th, 2022. Zoom meeting link will be available on the posted meeting section of the Town of Rockport website, rockport.ma.gov prior to the hearing. Petition of National Grid, 6:05 p.m. 2 Granite Street, installation of 1 anchor and approximately 200 feet northwest of the center line of the intersection of Summit Ave, Los Daily Times, 7/11/2022. And with that, who do we have to present, Mitch?
Mr. Chair, there's supposed to be a representative from National Grid here. I'm just looking, I don't see the name of our regular designee. If the National Grid person could raise their hand or use the hand raise feature. If you're on the phone, hit *9.
I remember seeing an email, Mitch, did we get the link sent off to him?
We did.
Yeah, I don't see our regulars.
You bet. I don't see Betsy here. She's usually one of the regular folks. Again, if you're one of the people on the phone, hit *9. It'll raise the hand.
Are we able to postpone this or probably not because it's advertised, right?
We'd have to
Later.
do the whole process over again if you.
Yeah,
it's your
because
decision.
it's advertised, yeah.
I mean, do you have any information on it, Mitch, or is it really?
I have what they sent in, which is what the board has relating to installation of conduit on Granite Street in the area of Summit Ave and the installation of a guy pole and wire on a telephone pole adjacent to that. They did provide the plan for it. But again, I'm not, I have what you have on it, so
Yeah.
we rely on them to be here to share this with us.
Well, is there any public comment about it? Anyone wants, anyone against it or anything like that? If
What are
not,
the names? What are the names of the people again?
Cardarelli, last name is Cardarelli.
Okay, yeah, no, okay.
So I'm just gonna, I'll pull up the, pulling up the packet now. We can screen share the map. And then you can decide what your preference is. Okay.
once you get that up, Mitch, if you want to unmute Ed Hand, see what he has to say.
Okay, so this is their map that they sent in to us. So it's looks like the installation of conduit and the guy wire relating to the 5 Granite Street project. And then this is the notice that they provide. Particularly the center area right here.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like anything out of the ordinary,
No.
Chairman. I would ask if there's a, I would maybe suggest taking any public comment on it, buying a little
Yeah,
time.
Ed Hand has his comment, hand
Yeah.
up, so. Gonna go ahead and unmute him. Unless you just took it down.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if it's helpful. I do see Kristen Carlson here from Harbor Light. Kristen, I know it's for your project. I don't know if there's anything that you have to maybe add on this.
Oh, hey, Mitch. Hi, everyone. Yep, I'm Kristen Carlson from Harbor Light. This is definitely National Grid territory, but I can just explain what I understand is that they'll be bringing service to our project overhead over Granite Street from that pole to the existing poles on the site. And I think they need to do some work to that pole that's on the other side of the street in order to bring the service across. That's my non-technical understanding of what they need to do.
Now, I thought they were going to put the line underground. That's what we're,
Yeah, they've indicated underground conduit. So the guy wire and the support for the pole would be right here, it appears. And then also in this vicinity, they'd be crossing the street
right.
underground.
How urgent is this needed?
We like to keep National Grid moving as much as we can, just because the timelines are a little unpredictable. Yeah, that's interesting. My understanding of the design was that we're coming overhead on the street, but I defer to what they would say.
I mean, it's pretty simple, but I'm still in the field of if they're not here, then I'm not in favor of approving it if they're not here. I don't want it to become a norm where they just stop showing up in general. So
Would we be able to put it on our next scheduled meeting? Or is that too packed?
They have to renotice it.
It would have to be renoticed. And the town is responsible for paying for these, so we're going to end up sending them the bill for a renotice for this.
Okay.
So if we have a motion to, if there's any public comment on this, I'll take it now. If not, we'll close the public hearing. Seeing none, I have a motion.
Yes, motion, I move that the board close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. I think if we want to just vote to vote to disapprove, or we don't want to go that far. 'cause
I
that
would
will-
say if you just want them to come back and do their usual presentation, you just take no
Yep.
action this evening.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll be moving on to committee update, and we have, I think we have Monica here from the Old Firehouse Trust Building Study.
Yes, thank you very much. We also have here on the call Kate Johns, who is also a member of the Designer Selection Committee as well. And I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any questions as well. I did send over this morning a detailed update and kind of a summary of the project history, so you can have it on file. It's been updated from earlier presentations, and you perhaps did not have a chance to look at it, but I don't think tonight we want to go through the whole history. Just very briefly, I think you know that we got started on this seriously just about a year ago, last summer, after having received a grant from CPC and from the Mass Cultural Council to do a feasibility study and preliminary design for the old firehouse. We got going in earnest in the late fall. We had brought designers on board who were historic preservation experts. And we moved very quickly over the winter and early spring months to come up with a good preliminary design so that we could get into the grant cycle for CPC. We started, of course, with gathering public input. And we did really our best to be as inclusive as possible, holding a public forum, doing a survey that was widely posted. And we had a very good response with many pages of very detailed ideas and a lot of enthusiasm for preserving and restoring the old firehouse. With those ideas from the public input in mind, we worked very hard, roughly between January and March, to develop plans for the building, plans that would improve the functionality of the space, and without going crazy, trying to be as cost effective as possible. And most importantly, we were very mindful of the concerns that had been raised about resiliency of the building, given that it is located in right on the waterfront in a flood zone, in a velocity zone, in fact. So we did our best to respond to those concerns. And of course, the cost escalated during the course of the time, but with the full support of the CPC committee up to that point, we had agreed to break the project into 2 phases to move forward. However, it all really comes down to approval of our design for the building. And as good as it was, we were unable to get the approvals we needed for the design. And there are a couple of, the major reason really is that it is in a velocity zone. And FEMA has very strict requirements for construction in a velocity zone. And although our plan was very robust, protecting the building and a design that would not pose any hazards to public safety, FEMA calls for elevating the building or having breakaway walls, neither of which was really something we could entertain due to the extreme costs involved. The only way to be able to proceed without complying with FEMA requirements would be to get a waiver locally or to get a letter from the Massachusetts Historic Commission confirming that the building is indeed a historic structure and therefore exempt from FEMA requirements. On speaking with the building inspector, he requires a letter from Mass Historical certifying that it is indeed a historic structure. Well, we know it's a historic structure. It goes back to 1855 and has gone through many different uses since it was built as a firehouse for the town. But unfortunately, the Massachusetts Historical Commission did not agree that it was a historic structure. I say unfortunately because the building, as far as we can tell from Kate John's very careful and thorough reading of FEMA regulations, it does meet the FEMA definition of a historic structure because it is listed in the local historic district. It is in the state inventory of historic places. It's on the state register of historic places by virtue of being in the historic district and having its own separate listing. However, the Mass Historical Commission did not find that sufficient. They chose to hold the building to a higher standard, requiring that it be eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. And as Kate could explain, that is a very high bar, which not many old buildings can meet. And the firehouse could not meet that standard. So the Mass Historical Commission issued a letter of determination that it is not a historic structure because it cannot meet the standards for National Register listing. But FEMA doesn't require that. And we don't understand why the Mass Historical Commission holds buildings to a higher standard. So Kate has written a very good letter to the Mass Historical Commission asking for some clarification of the rules here because these rules could have an impact on other buildings in the historic district going forward. But the fact of the matter is we received that letter last week. And this, by the way, is after having been told previously that they would issue us a letter that it's historic. They reversed themselves. That came in last week. And really, as a result, there is no way for the project to go forward. We are required to follow FEMA guidelines unless we get a letter, and we got a letter that does not give us an exemption from FEMA. So that essentially pulls the plug on the project at this point in time. In effect, essentially at this time, there is nothing that can be done to repair the building that will return it to functional use, because any work that is done to it that exceeds 30% of the value or 50% of the value would trigger compliance with all applicable codes. And we're just not able to do that. So in effect, the project cannot go forward at this time, and there is nothing that can be done to fix the building in any way that will make it usable for the public, which in our view is truly unfortunate, because it's a wonderful asset right in the downtown that has a very very colorful and long and rich history, not only in service to the town, but also as a center of cultural, artistic, musical, dance, theater, you name it. It's happened at that building, and we were hopeful of preserving it for the use by the residents of the town, both in the public town committees as well as private individuals. But at this time, we do not see a way forward for the building. So
Thank
we
you.
have withdrawn our application to the CPC committee, and that's where we stand at the present. And be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you,
I don't know
Monica.
if Kate has anything she would like to add that I may have overlooked.
Kate? Anything you want to add?
No, I think Monica put it very well. Obviously, it's disappointing and it's puzzling, the reaction of Mass Historical. And just to clarify, their letter did not say it was not historical. This is a fine point. It just said it does not meet the criteria for individual listing on the National Register. And that is that very, very high bar that buildings like Monticello or the White House or the State House in Boston meet. So you can imagine that a, modest historic firehouse, 150 years old, very important to the town of Rockport, but, definitely not a Monticello. It's very hard for that kind of building to meet that high bar. However, it does meet the bar of being a very important part of a local historic district, which it is. And it is historic. It is in the historic district. As Monica said, it's on the state register. So we are puzzled and we're trying to get to the bottom of it for this building as well as other historic buildings in downtown Rockport.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yes.
Stephen Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kate and Monica, for all your hard work. It certainly is disappointing to hear this information, but my question, and I'm wondering, is there any type of appeal that we could do, or is that just will land on deaf ears? Or are you aware of anything?
No, Kate did write a letter responding to the letter we received from them, really laying out how the decision, it seems, the illogic of it, and asking for clarification, because it seems contradictory to their mission to be issuing determinations that go against preservation of an important historic local building. So her letter is quite excellent in laying out why the building does seem to meet the standards of the criteria established by FEMA. And it's our view that it's FEMA calling the shots as to when you need to elevate and when you need to have breakaway walls. And we seem to meet the FEMA definitions, but Mass Historical has applied tougher definitions. So we've responded to them directly. We don't know what to expect by way of response, but I doubt very much there's any kind of a formal appeals process.
The only reason I say that is the boards and committees and commissions, they make mistakes and maybe they overlooked something. And I don't know if it would be beneficial, but to involve Senator Tarr and Representative Ferrante, maybe they have some juice up there that they could help and push this along if at all possible. Because it doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but it just doesn't make sense that's not fall under their category.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion, and I think we'll continue to follow up, but it's difficult for this particular project with this particular funding cycle and the needs of the building. So.
Well, thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, as Kate said, we do intend to pursue it, but it's too late, as she said, for this cycle. And that does create difficulties because already with the schedule that we laid out, which I described in the summary that I provided this morning, at the earliest, the project would have been completed in like 2025. So now it's in yet another year and we'd be talking about 2026 and beyond. So it stretches it out to the point where it almost becomes not feasible anyway.
Yeah.
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Brackett. So Monica, you said that it was the building inspector who requires the letter from the Mass Historical Commission.
Yes, that's correct.
Would it be possible to talk to Paul about that and make it clear to him that the building does meet the FEMA definition of historical, and maybe he would be able to waive that requirement in this case for that reason?
Well, we did have several conversations with Paul, and he requires the letter from Mass Historical.
Okay.
Thank you, Monica. Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you, Monica and Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is interviews and appointments of board, committee, and commission members, and we'll open up with Aaron for the DPW commissioners.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, fine, there.
Name and address for the record, please.
Sure, 4 Mount Pleasant
I'm just
Street.
kidding.
Oh, well.
We haven't seen you in so long, Aaron, so.
I know, yeah.
All right, Aaron, if you just want to, touch on why you're interested and why you've put forward for this position.
Well, sure. So I had an interview with Mitch Vieira, which was, very nice to see Mitch again, but also good to speak with him about what's going on with the town and with the department. And I've also had conversations with both Bruce Reed and Chairman Jim Gardner, the current members, and as well was able to run into Larry, being a small town, on Sunday, and Larry Neal, the outgoing commissioner. I was able to have a nice conversation with him. So after reading the bylaws, which I actually had not read for a while in terms of the role of the commissioners, I feel like I have a fair understanding of the role and the responsibilities of the commissioners. I'd be looking forward to, even though having served on the Board of Selectmen, you certainly get an understanding of this major department in town. But I think this would be an opportunity for me to learn a lot more about this department. And they've got, I know, a number of really important projects coming up. One in particular that I'm interested in dealing with if I were appointed is that you just heard a little bit about the Harbor Light housing project. And so there's an issue coming up about the impact of, with that number of bedrooms being built, the I&I impact on that project. So the Board of Commissioners will be dealing with that. We just heard about the Firehouse Trust building. So with that happening, the commissioners and the Board of Selectmen, I would imagine, sitting down to discuss what the next steps are. That'll be a very important project. And as I said, the overall infrastructure of the town, we have problems ever since our towns have had to deal with the impact of Prop 2.5. On the one hand, it helps us keep our taxes down, but we also end up with problems on our roads and with other projects that we have to be very careful with what we can afford. So I was approached to consider with the opening coming up, and I gave it some thought and decided that I would put my name in.
Awesome. Any questions from the board? Selectman Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just fully support Aaron's nomination. She worked tirelessly for 6 years on the Board of Selectmen. She's done everything in this town. She's given a tremendous amount of time and effort, and I think she'd be a great addition to the Board of Health, the commissioners. I hope that other members of the Board of Selectmen would support it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I too support Aaron strongly. I think you'll bring a great perspective to the commission. And I think your perspective on kind of what the commission is responsible for will be welcomed and helpful. So thank you for stepping forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Selectman Loya?
Yeah, a quick comment. The difference of responsibilities between the director of the DPW and the commissioners, is that entirely clear in your mind? And if so, what are those differences in responsibilities?
Well, not necessarily differences, but my understanding is first that the commissioners would be responsible for hiring a new director. But we have a new director, Gary LeBlanc, and so it would be the commissioners working with the director, setting priorities, dealing with issues that might come up that the director needs assistance with. We would be preparing and presenting the budget as well as the annual revenue statement to the Board of Selectmen before town meeting. So that's about, if there were discrepancies that came up, that the director came to us having to do with either a payroll issue or a revenue issue, the commissioners are responsible for looking into that and investigating that and resolving it. So that's the sort of the overall list of responsibilities that I understand.
Maybe I misunderstood when it was explained to me, but the commissioners are responsible for the policies and the DPW director is responsible for the day-to-day activities. Okay.
That's correct.
So that's to me is the clear distinction between the two.
Oh, okay. I didn't look at that as a difference. I looked at that as, that's the director's role. Yes.
Okay.
Councilwoman Wilkinson?
Sure. Hi, Aaron. Welcome.
Hi, Sarah. Oh,
nice to see you as always. I did have the opportunity to chat with Aaron. I think honestly, from serving with Aaron on the Board of Selectmen, her understanding of infrastructure and town and her, her other life as a multiple property owner and construction, like Aaron's has a vast knowledge of all systems. And I think this is, frankly, I think being a commissioner is perfect for her. I look forward to working with her, and it's not lost on me that Erin, if appointed, may be the first female DPW commissioner in the town's history.
Another glass ceiling broken.
Which is pretty cool, I have to say. But
Agreed.
When Bruce first mentioned it to me, he was like, I think I have the perfect candidate. And he said Aaron, and I was like, oh my God, like what a fantastic idea. So Aaron, I thank you for throwing your hat, back in the ring to something new and totally different. And I think that you, Bruce, and Jim will make a great team.
Thanks. And can I just say that when Bruce talked to me about it, it was really the coffee at Brothers Brew that did it, because that's where we actually sat and met. So I blame Ross too.
And one question for me is,
Sure.
As you are the policy setters, at any point, if your policies allows the director to make the decision, at any point, do you think it's necessary for the commissioners to undermine the director's decision and override him in a public meeting?
Well, that's an interesting question, but the word undermine sort of isn't in my vocabulary, so I hope I never undermine anybody. But so I'd have to I would say that would be on a case-by-case basis. So I would look forward to working with the director on items. And if there was information that would lead me to believe that in my role as commissioner, I really do need to, make a different decision. I mean, I would hope that I would stick with my role as a commissioner. And,
but you'd at least discuss it with him beforehand and
oh, sure.
Maybe
Well,
not do it in a public meeting, so to speak, talk to him on the side maybe. And
oh, well, sure. That would make sense. That's sort of how I deal with things just in general. So
thank you. And one last comment for the INI you mentioned, please make sure that is nice and public for everyone, as that's been a hot topic these past few years, so make sure the
Oh,
public has a
yes.
great understanding of that, so.
Yep.
Thank you for that, and we'll move on to the motion if there's no more questions.
Great, Mr. Chair, with great pleasure, I move that the board appoint Aaron Battistelli as a member of the Board of Commissioners of Public Works for a term to expire on June 30th, 2025, subject to compliance with the board's policy on board/committee/commission membership.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
and Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. Congratulations, Aaron.
Thank
Time to put on
you.
your hard hat.
I have one. I already have my own, so. And it's pink. No.
Sounds good.
All
All right,
right.
thank you again. Next on the list, we have Board of Health, Ray Cahill. And that's right. I'm gonna say a few things before we get to Ray. As you heard, many people speak up tonight. Unfortunately, not many of them were at the Board of Health meeting, but I was. So I felt the candidate that was not recommended, again, as I understand, she has multiple viewpoints. Her opinions were attacked by one member, which is, his prerogative. And then what really stood out to me was one of the members, as you've already heard, looked at her and said that she wished she didn't mention mental health, which I think is, a decent concern coming out of the pandemic. So when she said that, that's her expertise. So I was kind of taken back that they say that to the candidate, and that was one of the reasons why they were not recommending her. So with that out of the way, this is the first time I'm chair, number one, and that I've seen the process of them coming, two members for one seat coming to the selectmen. So I didn't know about the process. I didn't want to disrupt the process. So the committee will recommend, and then that person moves forward. This isn't the Board of Health. This is the town of Rockport's Board of Health. So I think the elected officials should be making the decision on who gets that seat. So I think further down the line, if there's two candidates, they should both be coming in front of us, and they should both be getting interviewed by us. And if one wants to be recommended by the Board of Health, that's fine too. We put that forward saying this one's been recommended, but I think they should still both come in front of us for massive discussion, especially when it's a topic like this. And again, my final question to the Board of Health is, what's their view on mental health if they were upset at her mentioning that? So, I have two kids in school. I've seen it with them. We've seen it with customers at my business. They're off the hinges, and we've seen it at town hall ourselves. We have residents coming in that are, more aggravated than ever and angry than ever. So I think it's a missed opportunity for our Board of Health to look into mental health as a focus point for the committee. So with that, we'll open.
Ross, so just a clarification, so you're interested in possibly looking at changing that policy so that all candidates come in front?
I wouldn't say that, I don't even think there's a policy. It's just the way it's been done is what I've been told. And I didn't want to break from that. So I
appreciate that, but that's something to look up.
So again, I would be interested in making a policy on that, because I think that it should be coming to us as we're the elected officials, because as I said, it's not the Board of Health, it's town of Rockport's Board of Health. So the selectmen should be making the decision on all candidates that come forward.
Well, yeah, honestly, we should probably put that on a different agenda for a discussion item. For us.
It is. I'm bringing it
because
up
there are lots of policies that revolve around putting people on committees. So we should make sure and not confuse it with this, but yeah, that should be something we discuss.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on with the recommended candidate.
Great.
Dr. Cahill.
Welcome.
Hold on, we just gotta get you unmuted. All right, there you go.
There you go. Good evening.
How you
Hi,
doing?
Dr. Cahill.
If you'd like to tell us why you put forward and interested in the position.
Sure, thank you. Granted, it was the pandemic that really kind of drew me in to getting a good look at the Board of Health, dialing into a number of their meetings over the past couple of years, taking a good look at what they were faced with. And I was definitely heavily interested in the response to the pandemic, but everything from environmental issues, plastics ban. It very much impressed me the scope of what they needed to be involved with to try to promote the health of the town overall. So that's just kind of how it got on my radar. And I was, when I heard that a position might be opening up, I just, threw my hat in the ring, and I figured, this town's been very good to my family. And at some point, you just kind of want to roll up your sleeves and say, how can I help? Is there a way I can give back? It seemed like a potentially a good fit, in the job that I have. When I first entered this veterinary profession, I was told by many people, don't be surprised if you change career paths 5, 6, 7 times. And I didn't understand that at the time. But as the years have gone by, it's certainly become evident, kind of the scope of what you can become involved in and what you're needed to try to help with. Looking through the lens of comparative medicine, environment, and that's where my focus really lies. My focus really lies at that intersection of human health, animal health, and environment. So I just saw that as a pretty good fit. And some folks had just said, we think that you might have some skills that could help as we try to come out of this pandemic and try to widen the lens back up again into a lot of the broader issues that the Board of Health would like to see tackled in the upcoming months and years. I was willing to step forward and see if I could play a role. Sorry.
My bad. Sorry, I muted myself. Selectwoman Donovan, I saw you first.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Dr. Cahill, I know that there have been a number of bird deaths reported on Straitsmith and I think Thatcher Islands. And I guess if you could just share with us how your expertise might serve the town in dealing with the avian flu and what's going on with that.
Yeah, it's it was a bit alarming seeing this rate of, and we get calls at our hospital about down birds, sick birds, acute deaths, and the bullet version is, thank goodness this isn't something that has crossed species lines. There have been, there have been some avian forms of influenza that have made it into humans, not very widely, thank goodness, but so this one doesn't seem to be a particular threat. The real threat would be to individuals who are managing very large flocks. Your backyard chicken coop flock is not going to be a real problem in this case. We do recommend that folks just not handle those birds, just keep a distance. You don't want to be patient zero. You don't want to be that first one, that really get sick. So, but even when you look at, COVID and the SARS epidemic and the MERS epidemic, these are all things that have crossed species lines. And so, from an epidemiologic standpoint, having more boots on the ground, more ears to the ground, more people paying attention to the animal sector. We live with them. They're in our beds at night. They're breathing our air. They're coughing, sneezing on us. So I think it's having that just teaming up health-wise to bring constructive thought and sharing information is the only way we're going to make it through this. If we've learned anything from this pandemic, it's communication and team building. So
thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Selectman William.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Cahill. Welcome, and I'm glad you are the individual that has been selected. I am a little bit disappointed with the failure of the general population to understand your background as a trained veterinarian. There is the suggestion that for some reason or other, you do not have a background that aligns with human health. But of course it does in all regards. You have spoken to this issue yourself, and in your comments now in the last few minutes. But there is a misunderstanding on the part of the general public as to the broad training that a veterinarian receives, and the fact that it is applicable to the human situation, very much so. So I, again, just wanted to express my disappointment in the failure of people to understand that, and admittedly, they don't have that kind of broad training. My background includes having interacted with MDs and PhDs, DVMs all my life, having many sessions, commentary sessions with them about animal and human health. So here you are, a great representative of your profession, and we're glad to have you as this candidate. Thank you.
Sure, thank you for that. I think it's kind of an exposure issue sometimes too, when folks hear about biosecurity issues and the roles that veterinarians need to play. I was, for a time, I was on veterinary medical assistance teams a couple of decades ago, and, you were always ready to get that call you might have to deploy when there was an outbreak and help assess situations. You might have to euthanize, tens of thousands of animals. I just think I understand it. I understand it when people don't necessarily, they think a veterinarian is look through a certain lens at a veterinarian, but there's a wide range of what we do out there. So thanks for appreciating that. That's, hopefully something that I can contribute.
Selectman Murphy?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the Board of Health, Dr. Cahill. And the current board is made up of a lot of medical people, doctors, PAs, nurses, and so forth. You being a veterinarian, it kind of shifts a little bit. What you may have spoken to this a little bit more, earlier, but what do you think you bring to the board from a veterinarian's point of view?
Thanks, Paul. I think as a veterinarian, mostly we were trained by default, we were trained to be comparative thinkers, to look at situations from as many angles as possible. When we took our anatomy course in our first year of vet school, there's 8 core species. So learning everything, but with understanding shades and differences across the board. So, and I loved it because that's the way my brain works, is to try to look at things from as many angles as possible. That's not to say that people in other professions don't do that. I just think that that's something that I've had a lot of experience with. And I think one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is, again, trying to help widen the lens, focus on what the board has ahead of them. I know that they've been talking a lot about reviving their after action report work that they've done before the pandemic. And there's a lot to learn. I'm going to be spending a lot of time listening, catching up, understanding regulations, but I think the desire is there, and with that group of people to glean the knowledge from, I think it'd be a great opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Cahill.
Thank you.
Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Sure. Good evening, Ray. Nice to see you.
You too, Sarah.
I have known Ray for a long time. I've worked with him on, I guess, several different capacities, and I've known him to be really reasonable and practical, and just someone to kind of think things through and be a team player. I guess just as an aside, kind of to what Ross was saying, I guess I look at the appointments a little bit differently. The Board of Health is appointed, so I trust, but I also think it's kind of a check for the Board of Selectmen that, that they interview candidates and put one forth to us. So I guess I look at it a little bit differently. I also want to thank Bea for putting her hat in the ring. I mean, just like all appointments or elections, certain people get chosen for one thing over another. And I definitely don't
I've talked to multiple members of the Board of Health. I don't think this is any indictment on choosing a veterinarian over a mental health professional. I think we are in the midst of a pandemic. All of these issues and experiences and everyone's experiences are really valuable. And I think the Board of Health, has put forth their candidate, and that's their purview to do. And I hope that, by B kind of putting her name forward, that shows that obviously the Board of Health working with mental health professionals is really important, even though she didn't get chosen. So I know the members of the Board of Health, and I have utmost faith that they will continue to do that. Ray, my question for you is, and I know we had a conversation because through the pandemic, I've been the liaison to the Board of Health. And we had a really good discussion because you questioned me on kind of my views with working with the Board of Health as liaison from the selectmen. So it's not really a question, but I would just love for you to share a little bit on how you view the boards working together.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. The critical, and that's nice that you sound like you're going to stay as the liaison from the selectmen's board to the Board of Health.
Frankly, I don't know if anyone else wants it after the pandemic, where we are, but it's been a pleasure to work with everyone, and I think I still have it.
There you go. I mean, I just again, the way my brain works, thinking about public health in general and making any policy for the town. I mean, I see the two as just deeply intertwined. Having to make decisions, I can't imagine what goes into making the decisions at the selectmen's meetings, the scope of what you synthesize to try to make the right decision, what you think is the right decision for the town. So working the two groups working hand in hand, it was great to see those joint meetings, and just from the sake of communication, getting out there the topics, what is being discussed, both on the Board of Health, both on the Board of Selectmen, just how they're integrated. I think that's, and I've talked to members of the current Board of Health about ways that I would love to see more communication with the public with respect to what is being discussed at the Board of Health, what they're struggling with, what they're deciding on, whether it's through social media or whatever is allowable to communicate to the town. The more communication, the better. So it's the way that you're going to avoid conflict. It's the way that you're going to get clarity. It just makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think the pandemic definitely taught us that. I mean, I've kind of become the unofficial board social media person, and I can't even tell you, residents just crave information however they can get it. And I think, we've established a good relationship with the Board of Health the past couple of years. At first it was a learning curve, kind of figuring out like who communicated what, and, and it was interesting. All of a sudden we were all thrown on Zoom, and we went from like meeting twice a month in person to 4 or 5 nights a week, going to 4 or 5 days a week, going to Zoom meetings, and then how we quickly get that information to the public. So I think you're right on target, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Sarah. Same.
And I have a few questions, but before I do that, I do want to touch on what Selectwoman Wilkinson said. I would agree with you. I'm not looking to get in a conversation, but my point was the fact that, some of the reasons why the other candidate didn't get chosen was because of her opinions and because of her expertise, as far as I'm concerned, because they were upset that she mentioned it. So those, I don't think, are keeping us in check. That's leaving a candidate off the table for us. And second, I'll put us in a discomfort position. Did any of us, as Z said, did any of us read the questions that were asked to the candidates at the Board of Health meeting? Or they had a recording? Did any of us read the recording? If anyone can say yes, please do so. But I was there and I did read it, so I just wanted to address that. I know that, to say that, but we still don't know the questions that were asked. And as I'm saying, there's no reason, and I don't think this is a mental health versus vet, because there is no reason Ray shouldn't be selected. I'm just saying that the way it was done, I think, needs to be reviewed by us. And sorry about that, Ray. Back to you.
Okay.
One question I have: should the Board of Health override recommendations put forth from the CDC or the state in sense of guidelines? An example, mandating masks in private businesses? Or should that be left up to the business owners themselves?
Yeah, good question. I guess the real difference between a mandate and a recommendation, I think we're lucky that we've gotten to this point in the pandemic, right, where we can, we know a lot more. We have tools available, as we all hear, between vaccines, between the antiviral medications, the way that the virus has mutated and shifted to become more transmissible, but it seems to be a lot less threatening to our health overall. I think that gives us the opportunity to be making more decisions for ourselves. I'd have no problem if local businesses, I couldn't see a mandate. To me, that wouldn't make sense. I think any business, they know their people, they know their needs, they know what drives them. We're still following at our hospital, we're still following the human health model where we've got masks on and we're asking clients to wear masks just because we want to stay standing, because every day that we're down, and it happens, it's not infrequent, but every day that we're down team members, we can do less to help our patients. And so it's easy because to me, it's not about the business, it's about it's really about helping and doing our job, and we want to be there. So so I certainly wouldn't worry about if there was no huge considerable public health risk, if the pandemic didn't shift in some horrible way and the pendulum swing back in some very, very dangerous way. I think that we're fortunate to be in a situation where we can read the tea leaves for our own, looking at our own health, who is on our team, what are the risks to those teammates, and what's the best thing for our particular business.
As a business owner, you're saying that?
Yeah.
Make decisions? Okay. And then as the discussion has happened this evening with Selectman Leah pointing out lack of exposure, you said, and you mentioned the skills you bring. Can you elaborate on some of those skills so the public gets a better understanding?
Sure, elaborate on the skills that I'd be bringing, yes?
Yep.
Cool. I think listening, I have not always been the best listener, but it's something that has become more and more relevant over the years, to really just take a beat, listen, and be curious, ask more, so that I truly think that I've got a real understanding of what the other person is trying to communicate. So between listening as a good skill, I think I've got a good ability to go out and gather information, to synthesize that information, and a lot of it, being medical or scientific. I've been fortunate enough to have built the ability to look at data and try to, carefully tease through it, see how it might be applicable. And I think just the passion, the desire that I've got to help the town, I think is really, those are really the things that I think the key top three things that I think I bring to the table.
Thank you. And then lastly, I have to do this, with the pandemic coming to an end, what is your view on mental health, and do you think it's a significant problem we may face? And if so, do you have any ideas on how we could address it?
It's massive. It's absolutely massive. And, people's heads kind of snap back when I talk about how it's impacted the mental health of the pets. A lot of animals are not doing well right now, and a lot of pet owners are not doing well right now. Sort of the old saying that in the line of work I'm in, the old saying of that there's a patient at both ends of the leash. A lot of what we do day to day is kind of public health, because it's one thing to be giving tips on how to, keep the cat from tearing apart the furniture, but that it's got it's causing a huge stress on the family, on people as well. So So I do think that we're seeing a lot of it. I think we're going to be seeing more of it. I think it's going to be a while before we can look back and really tease out the appropriate lessons from this. You talked about your kids in the school system and the young kids, and my kids are graduating. They just graduated high school. That they weren't particularly young during this pandemic. I can't imagine what that must have been like for really young kids to have to go through this, to try to get their heads around it as best they could. So I think we're going to be seeing this play out for years, and the Board of Health's role in working with the schools, working with the community, to pay particular attention to that is something I'm strongly interested in.
Thank you. I hope with that last comment, I hope you can bring some sense of mental health focus from the Board of Health into the school system. So with that, I'll take any more questions if any, or comments. Stefan Lilly?
Yes, I will just bring him back, Dr. Cahill, back to his training, which is so applicable to the Board of Health situation. That includes the training in hematology and epidemiology, in anatomy, in the assessment of environmental toxins. I mean, everything that is a part of his general training is applicable to the Board of Health questions of the future. And that is the part that most people don't understand. The broad spectrum of training of a veterinarian is no different than the broad spectrum training of an MD, albeit the species is different on which they focus. Species are different, but the training is the same. So to discount a veterinarian and their training in any way, to me, is a failure to understand what they go through to get where they are. Anyway, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Cahill.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have Board Health member Ruth George here, if she'd like to make a comment. Hold on, Ruth, 1 second. Get you unmuted. There you go. Nope, you guys are playing mute tag.
Ruth George, 86 Granite Street, Rockport, member of the Board of Health. We had 2 great candidates, and I just want to clarify, I don't think anyone said that we didn't care about mental health. My comment specifically was that we have 2 people that we were interviewing. One was a veterinarian, and we have taught the last 2 openings on the Board of Health when I was a Board of Selectmen liaison. The board talked about getting either a plumber or a veterinarian to round out the board, and they never got that. This time we had Dr. Cahill apply. I did not know him. I did not know Mrs. Reardon. We also, this year, with the pandemic, have gotten a regional Board of Health nurse, Rachel Lee. She used to be the Hamilton Board of Health nurse, and she has helped me with all the clinics. She's now the regional Board of Health nurse, and she is also in the process of hiring an LICSW to get into the schools, get into each of the communities. On the group that's interviewing someone for this job is someone from the housing authority, someone from the school department, several other different boards and area people who are have a concern in town and all the other surrounding towns that we're getting this person from. So I thought, personally, I thought Ray was the best candidate right now with our backup of LICSW coming into the town in another way. So I don't think any member was opposed to having mental health in our discussion at all. That's just my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to say much, but I will say one of your members did say she was upset that mental health was mentioned by one of your candidates. So thank you for that. And I'll move on to any more comments from the board. If not, we'll move on to a vote.
So Ross, you should try, I'm trying to be really respectful. You should try to move on and from keep saying the same thing, because frankly, at this point, it's taking away from the candidate that the board.
I understand that, but I mean, if she's going to comment that, I wasn't going to get into it, but I'm going to now. I don't want a regional health nurse for mental health that's split between 4 different communities.
So
That's what
Ross,
I'm saying.
Ross,
So,
I-
well, as I said, I'll move on to any more comments.
attend a Board of Health meeting and make your comments. This isn't.
I'm on the
this
record
isn't
at the Board of Health meeting. Thank you.
the right, this
I'll
isn't the
move
right.
on to a motion if anyone has the motion. Thank you.
I move that the board appoint Dr. Ray Cahill as a member of the Board of Health for a term to expire on June 30th, 2025, subject to compliance with the board's policy on board committee commission membership.
I'll second that.
And, can we unmute Selectman Murphy, please?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Ross?
I'm waiting for you to unmute Selectman Murphy so we can do a roll call vote.
Oh, okay.
All right, roll call vote. Selectman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Ray. See you at the next meeting.
Welcome, Ray.
Thank you very much. I really look forward to it. Appreciate it.
You.
See you at the next.
Congratulations.
See you at the next county game.
Yes, for sure.
Tomorrow, correct?
That's right.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Jerry Shafstein for the Green Community Task Force.
I have a motion, Mr. Chair. I move that the board appoint Jerry Shafstein as a member of the Green Community Task Force for a term to expire on June 30th, 2023, subject to compliance with the board's policy on board/committee/commission membership.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Jerry, if you want to say a few things on why you put forward for the committee.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it, Ross, and want to thank all the select persons for allowing me to be considered for this position, and also thank Mitch for the interview I had with him last week. I've given a lot of thought to wanting to be a member of the Green Community Task Force, and I wanted to briefly discuss those with you. First is my background. I've got 40 years plus experience in the HVAC, basically the air conditioning industry, as well as the boiler industry. I sold product for Trane air conditioning, and also sold components to major manufacturers in the air conditioning industry and the boiler industry. In my jobs, I was involved in long-term project work, which is the type of project work that is done in the Green Community Task Force. I've been involved in dealing with all aspects of the business world and all different types of people, people in engineering, production, purchasing, quality, scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. So I've got a good experience in dealing with all different types of people in types of different jobs. During my working career, I worked as a sales manager, a national sales manager. In the last position I held when I was with Texas Instruments was a global account manager, where I was responsible for coordinating the sales effort globally with selling product to Carrier air conditioning. During my working career, I worked for Trane air conditioning, Texas Instruments, and my last job was with Danfoss, who supplies a lot of product to the boiler market. So I bring a lot of good experience in program management and understanding the steps that are required to go from identifying a project to closing a project. In this case, getting grant money and making sure that the project is run smoothly when we do get the money. The second reason is really a spiritual component, and I belong to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Rockport, and we rely on 7 principles. And one of our principles is respect for the interdependent web of all existence, which we are a part of. And I take that very, very seriously. I see climate change as a very important issue, and feel that from a spiritual standpoint, I need to be doing work in that area to make this world, in whatever little way I can, a better place. And the final component is moving here to Rockport and calling this my home. My wife and I moved here around 7.5 years ago, full time. We have two daughters who live here, Alyssa Inglis and Amy Rich, both who teach in the Rockport School District. I've got four grandchildren who are going to Rockport Public Schools. And I really want to see this town become a better place to live in and a safe place to live in. And I see climate issues as being a threat to that. So I want to be able to give back. I feel very fortunate that my wife and I were able to move here and be close to our family and be able to watch them grow up. Since I moved here full time 7.5 years ago, been active in work in our congregation. Been involved in budgetary work, social justice programs, and most recently started a group within our congregation of looking at climate issue as being an important issue that we need to address. I was also involved in the search committee, and I see Ruth is on the call. I worked with Ruth when we were trying to look for a new superintendent, and I felt I was a valuable player in that group, and saw it as a way of giving back to this community. So as Ray said earlier, I mean, I really want to give back to this community. I feel blessed to live here, and feel that this is a little way that I can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We'll move on to questions from the board, if any. Selectman Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Jerry, for all your community service in the short period of time that you've been here from New York, 7.5 years. During that 7.5 year period, have you become a Red Sox fan, or are you still a Yankees fan?
I stopped being a Yankees fan when Steinbrenner bought the team. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, apparently you're filled with wisdom and good judgment. But if you, what any particular project that you would like to get involved in when you're appointed? Anything that really sticks out in your mind?
Well, right now we've got a laundry list of projects that are currently being worked on. And, I just want to, I'm still coming up the learning curve.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And it's a very steep one. I'm getting to understand who does what in the Green Community Task Force. And so I just want to be a part of helping make the right decisions to get the grant money that we're trying to get. And as new projects, as new projects turn up, hopefully people can rely on my expertise and knowledge to help us be successful in getting those grants.
Well, it's become quite evident to me that with your background that you'll make a great fit, and I just wanted a tip of the hat and thank you.
Thank you.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank you as well, Jerry, for stepping forward. It's great to see new faces coming to join some of our committees. So really, really appreciate your expertise and your volunteering. Thank you.
Thanks.
Selectman Loya.
Yes, I would also like to welcome you, Jerry, and comment on Denise's comment. That is, seeing new faces is the name of the game. Spreading the expertise around is important. Having the same expertise is perhaps pigeonholes us to some degree. So having new faces on these different groups is, I think, to our advantage. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks. I want to be known as Jerry Shafstein and not Amy Rich's father.
Actually,
that's true.
Any other questions from the board? Selectwoman Wilkinson, anything from you? You're muted, so I just can't hear. Bringing up Selectwoman Wilkinson, unmuted.
Oh.
Yeah, you're all set now.
I am muted. Thanks. Sorry. Welcome, Jerry. Thanks so much for putting your hat in the ring on this one. I'm not sure you'll ever not be known as Amy Rich's father, but there are less cool people to be known as their dad, right?
I agree.
So anyway, but welcome. Thanks so much. I also have to say I love when you bring your UU following to support on things. It's really cool. But I think it just, all this goes to show what a small community this is. And it's great that we have so many people willing to step forward. And, these committees, people have no idea how much time and effort these committees put in. And so thank you for being willing to step in.
Thank you.
And I go last. So Jerry, I do have an actual question for you. So my question is going to be, in the past, you've been very vocal about the net zero resolution and the date you have chosen. You've mentioned the selectmen directly in some of your comments. So my question to you, regardless of what date selectmen do you end up coming up with for a potential policy, are you still willing to work with them even if the date isn't the 2040 date that you've been vocal about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be foolish not to work with them. I mean, we need to take some action. I think the date that was chosen probably should have been more aggressive, but I mean, for us not to want to work with each other would not accomplish anything. I mean, this community needs to take some action. We need to think strategically if we want to continue to be the community we want it to be. So of course I would continue to work with them.
Awesome, thank you. And if there's no further questions, we'll move on to a roll call vote. All right, Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Lilia.
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Jerry.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to potential conservation commission members. Mitch, if you want to touch on that, I don't think we're going to be putting any action on that.
Sure,
As we're
so-
still working with council.
Sure, Mr. So if you want to take that one and you want to draw the conservation agent appointment up, we can do those at the same
Yep.
time if you'd like.
I'm going to
So-
be holding consent agenda number 5, potential appointment of conservation agent, and we're going to move it to right now and have the discussion. And if Mitch, if you just want to touch on that real quick for us.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So we are working. I met with 2 out of the 3 individuals who are interested in joining the commission. I had very good conversations with both of them. Very, very good discussions. And, I did share with them that we are still sorting out some, I would say, personal related matters that are related to the commission. And we're trying to get those addressed so that we can move forward successfully and not have any future issues come up. So I know there was some information listed in the newspaper. We're aware of that and attempting to address that and several other areas that have also been raised relating to the commission. So that is actively in process. And regarding the potential appointment of a conservation agent, we have a very good finalist that we're in some very good discussions with, I think. Selectwoman Donnelly has been working with me on that. Do you want to say anything on that, Denise?
No, just fingers crossed.
Yep. So some forward progress, and I think, really critically an agent. So hopefully that goes well. And we can get something squared away shortly, but we do need to take care of and look at the status currently with the commission, including current membership and what things will look like moving forward.
When do we, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yep.
When do we hope to have something in place realistically?
Well, we have to address these issues that are complicated that we've been slowly working through. So
right.
Hopefully as soon as possible, but as you're aware on a one-on-one basis, there's some issues that are still lingering that have to be addressed first.
And just, as Mitch mentioned, the newspaper article, just so the public knows, we are diligently working on this situation. I mean, Mitch is nonstop he's working with the state. We have council involved now to figure out our next steps. So just so the public knows, we are working on this. It's not on the back burner or anything like that. So I know a lot of people mention comments and we don't, fully explain what's going on because we're just actively going and it's changing every day. So I just want to make sure that's clear with the public.
And I think, it would probably be best to add at the moment that it isn't simply, we aren't at the position where it's simply point people and move on. There are still some issues that are being addressed and need to be so that the commission can be fully successful in its endeavors. And that's probably where I would leave it at this point.
All right, thank you, Mitch. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes, if any, seasonal position appointments, position adjustments, contract for water main replacement project, and number 5 was taken off or just discussed. So if I have a motion for the consent agenda.
You do, Mr. Chairman. I move that the board approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
Second,
And roll call vote, Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Oop,
oh, Selectman Murphy,
Sorry, aye.
and then Selectwoman Donnelly,
aye.
and motion carries. And Mitch, you mentioned to me. someone from
Mr.
National
Chair,
Grid is-
the National Grid representative, I believe, is here.
All right, does the board, do they want to entertain the National Grid
Sure.
and get it over with now? Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
I don't think we have to reopen a hearing. There was no comment in the hearing session, or would it be?
You didn't close it, so it's still technically.
Oh, we didn't? Okay. Sounds good to me, so. I thought we did. close it, but
Mr. Chair, Elizabeth Cardarelli is here.
We did close the hearing, I believe.
Yeah,
But was there a vote to close the hearing?
yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't take any action on the actual project. I mean, again, but there was no
Well, I
comment
would
on
say-
that, so.
So you have, I think you have two options. You can reopen the hearing or you can postpone it.
All right. Does anyone want to reopen it, or do you guys want to postpone?
I move that we reopen the National Grid hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And any discussion or no? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia.
Aye.
I'm going out of order tonight. I gotta fix my screen. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. So we'll be reopening the public hearing. And I think you said Elizabeth was here.
That's correct. Elizabeth Cardarelli is here, Mr. Chairman.
Alrighty.
Yes,
Take it away,
hello
Elizabeth.
there. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I do apologize if there was confusion with the time. I was given a start time of 7 p.m. If that wasn't accurate, I apologize. That came from another department. But thank you. Again, thank you very much for having me. My name is Elizabeth Cardarelli. I am a distribution designer at National Grid. We are at 44 River Street in Beverly, Massachusetts. And if it's okay, I can go right into my description on the request this evening?
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, we have an existing pole line on Granite Street in front of 2 and 4, heading straight up on that side of the street. And as everybody in that area knows, number 5 Granite Street is doing some construction. They are demoing the building out there, and they're going to be putting a larger building there. So they've requested that we provide them with service. And in order to do so, we will need to add an anchor in the ground at pole number 348. The area is tight, which is my reason for submitting this request this evening. Typically, we do add anchors all over the place. It's part of our appurtenances, but I did want to make sure where this is such a busy area and there's so much construction going on, that we did the proper thing by notifying everybody that we do plan on being in this location. So it is not to do anything other than to add an anchor and what we call a sidewalk fixture guy wire at this pole location on the backside.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, so the way that I understood it was that you're going to be installing an underground line. Is that not the case?
It is not the case. This has been a discussion we have had. Our standard form that's been being sent out is saying that it's an underground system.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that's coming from. And again, I apologize for the miscommunication. I draft the sketch, and then it does go to somebody else to draft the actual terminology for the request for the hearing. I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I know it is a concern, so I will take it from this meeting today and address it again to make sure that it is being addressed correctly.
And how long do you think this process will take?
To get a response, would you like it resubmitted?
No, just to install the anchor.
Oh, typically just a couple of hours. And a
Oh,
police
okay.
detail, yes, and a police detail will be requested by our overhead department. Yes. There's going to be quite a bit of construction out here, so I'm sure you're concerned about it. The town will be notified when we do request the police detail for the day that we plan on starting the work.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Roll call vote, Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
and Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
Second bracket votes aye, motion carries. Hearing's closed, and do I have a motion to approve or?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in light of the corrected information from National Grid that they are not in fact putting the underground conduit as the document says, Selectman Lee, I would offer an updated motion for your consideration.
Okay.
That would be move that the board approve the installation of one anchor and guy wire at the existing pole number 348. All authorization shall be based on plan number 304-37788 as submitted at the time of the hearing, and further that National Grid shall restore the roadway to standards acceptable by the Rockport DPW.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all right, any more discussion? If none, roll call vote, Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. All right, that's our agenda. Next up, we have, let me find the agenda. Is it appointment committees, reappointments? Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I'm
You all set?
all
Yep,
set.
you're
Do
all
we
set.
need to have any new documentation submitted just for the record?
Yes, please.
That would be appropriate. Okay, I will do that. And thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
And just for the public knows, on the second page of the agenda, that I missed some consent agenda items. I just want to make sure they're out there. Parking lot licenses for 48 Main Street and outdoor. Was that on there? My agenda split in half. Is that correct, Mitch? Yeah, it
That's
is.
correct.
Outdoor display permit for Appler's Gallery on 8 Dock Square. And then now we're moving on to the action list, which is our annual reappointments. And I'll take the first motion on that.
Great. I think it's me, right?
Yes.
And I can do the whole thing at once, right, Mitch?
Correct.
Great. Mr. Chair, I move that the board make the following one-year reappointments, all subject to compliance with the board's policy on board, committee, commission membership. For the Green Community Task Force, Bill Tobin and Bob Perry, Ed Hand and Diane Finch. As Action Inc. representative, Roger Lesh. The DPW Facility Building Committee, Ruth George, Bruce Reed, Monica Lawton, Andrew Soul, and Ross Brackett. For the Economic Development Committee, Maria DeStefano. For the Firehouse Designer Selection Committee, Monica Lawton, Kate Shaw, Ross Brackett, Kirk Keating, and Jim Gardner. For the Granite Pier Committee, Greg Morrell, Mike Tupper, George Kachopoulos, John Thompson, and Kathy Curasone. For the Open Space and Recreation Committee, Larry Neal, Anitra Pearson, Stephanie Cunningham, Samuel Cunningham, Corey Rinn. And for the Zoning Board of Appeals, Associate Members Richard York and Aaron O'Connell.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
I mean, just the usual. I know that they get kind of lumped together because we don't interview them every year, but just a huge thank you. This is just like a slice of, a fraction of the volunteers that work day in, day out to make this town run. So thank you to all of them for continuing to work hard.
Roll call vote, Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. There'll be no ARPA funds requests tonight, and we'll move on to the consideration acceptance of a gift of artwork.
Well, we have
From-
more committee members.
Oh, am I? I'm
Yep,
sorry,
there
my
should be one
papers
more
are all
motion.
messed up. I gotta get my, okay, I see it, yep. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You want me to make the motion?
Yes, please do.
I move that the board make the following 3-year reappointments, all subject to compliance with the board's policy on board, committee, commission membership. Historical Commission, Kerry O'Donnell, Kate Shaw, Thomas Stockton, alternate member. Finance Committee, Carl Engel, Laureen Wessel, Paul DeRosiers, and Don Southard.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. And am I still missing one more?
No, that's it for reappointments.
Thanks,
Mr.
that's
Okay.
it.
I'm just checking mine. All right, there we go. All right, and back to the action list and the gift from Patricia Laurie Collins.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. I move that the Board of Selectmen accept a gift of artwork from Patricia Laurie Collins as indicated on the gift of art form.
And do I have a
Second that.
All right, and it looks like Karen Berger's here. If she wants to touch on that, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you. We're very fortunate. The Town Art Committee is, as you probably are aware, largely does conservation, archival work, and cataloging for the town. And every once in a while, we have an opportunity to acquire a new piece of art for the collection. And this is particularly exciting because it's a modern piece, and the town, like the history of art, is evolving. And it's nice to have something that is representative of a more modern moment in Rockport. It's a lovely piece, and once you have an opportunity to see it, I hope you'll all agree that it's evocative of our beautiful beaches that we have here in town. So thank you, Pat Lowry Collins, and we will have this framed once this is accepted, and hopefully to have it in Town Hall for all to see.
My understanding is that the town administrator would like it in his office.
I've got no more room, sadly, with all the beautiful art.
I will say, as a lifelong resident and someone who collects art as well, I've always been amazed walking around the town buildings and some of the artwork from Betty Lou Schlem to Hibbard, to, just the amount of beautiful artwork, and it's so appropriate considering our heritage and our why the artists flocked here many years ago and continue to flock here to paint. So thank you for all the hard work, and it's really amazing the beautiful artwork that we are lucky enough to have.
It is, and this job, thank you. It's a pleasure for us to be able to work with this artwork. So thank you.
Thank you.
Karen. Is any other questions for Karen? If not, I'll do a roll call vote. All right, thank you for the artwork, Karen, or putting it forward at least. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. All right, next on our list is considering approval of the one-day liquor alcohol license, just alcohol license for Rockport New Year's Eve.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve a one-day alcohol license for Rockport New Year's Eve and Company for their summer sampler concert on August 6, 2022, from 4 to 7 p.m. with a rain date of August 7th, 2022, from 1 to 4 at the Rockport Legion, subject to all required permits from the police, fire, and Board of Health.
Second this?
All right, do we have any discussion? Anyone here to represent the New Year's Eve committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you have Susan Russo, who is the applicant on behalf of the committee.
All right. How you doing, Susan?
Hi there. Oh, pretty good. Just shuffling many things in life, as you all are at the moment. So forgive me. I'm in my breezeway, so you don't hear my crying kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, but really appreciate any support. I believe Monica might still be here as well. She's on the board of the Rockport New Year's Eve. We're all volunteer group, and we are just trying to get people excited about hopefully a more familiar New Year's Eve this year in town. So last year we did a summer sampler at Wind Hover. Despite the thunderstorms midway, it went really well, and visitors and residents seem to really like it. Obviously, we'll follow all requirements. We have bands already booked. Food truck is working with the Board of Health for their permitting, and yeah, we're really excited about it and appreciate any support. If you have questions, then feel free to ask me.
All right, with that, we'll move to the board for any questions.
Yeah, that's very exciting that this is happening, and I wish you all the best. We wish you all the best. How is the planning for New Year's Eve going?
Well, it's the perpetual roller coaster. You think things are looking good and you're underway and you have a very draft scope, and then things with pandemic kind of go up. But a short answer is the board has been meeting. We just had our most recent meeting in July. Pretty much trying to mirror most of what we had planned for last year, even though people never got to see it, with around 10 different venues in town, performances for the evening, family friendly activities, maybe some stuff outdoors. So we're meeting, we're planning, and definitely hoping to have some version of a Rockport New Year's Eve. This will be the 26th, but we didn't have last year. So this will be like our retry, second shot at a 25th anniversary.
Yeah, well, you folks do a terrific job, and I know it's not easy, especially living in this post-pandemic world. But hopefully all will go well. And thanks for all your hard work. And I will be at the concert as well.
Oh, great! Yes, it'll be fun. And I'm a newer member. I've actually been on the board during the pandemic only, even though I, as an individual, have enjoyed the Rockport New Year's Eve event. So, it's a wonderful group of people, years, decades of dedication. And so I appreciate them entrusting in me to bring this to the meeting tonight as one part of many to have the concert in August.
Nice. Well, great job, and we look forward to it.
Thank you all very much.
Selectwoman Wilkinson, do you have anything to
Yeah,
say? Yeah,
I mean, this is awesome. This is awesome. I know they've been hard at work. And this is great. Awesome to see stuff coming back.
Anyone else for a comment? And I'll say it's glad it's come back. And did we read the motion? I just can't remember.
Yes, I did.
All righty. Any other discussion from the board? All right, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Lilia.
Aye.
And Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Congratulations. I look forward to the event.
Yeah, and thank you for what you all do. And I'm going back to crying kids now. So
Well, the struggle is real.
All right, next on our agenda, we have the consideration of appointment for election workers. If I have a motion on that, I'll take that first.
Sure, I think that's me. Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint the following individuals as election workers as recommended by the town clerk and subject to: number one, their attendance of the required training, and number two, their final assignment is determined by the town clerk, all with terms to expire on June 30th, 2023. Sherry Casey, Andrea Ritchie, Heather Atwood, Judith Harris, Barbara Arnold, Bella Moranis, Deb Schradek, Emily Souza, Jane Hyrie, Joanne Wood, Dan Lynn, Chris Doyle, Lilia Orozco, Mark Barassa, Helen Barnett, Linda Meditz, Chris Christopher, Peter Wilcox, Lonnie Gray, Justin Quinn, Marcia Boudreau, Sally McLaren, Barbara Allenbrook, Linda DeCourcy, Marilyn Hellman, Candace Waldron, Suzanne Lee, Diane Parisi, John Parisi, Stephen McLaughlin, Jennifer Lyon, Linda Johnson, Janice Ramsden, Judy Lynn, Mary Jane Morrill, Pat Brown, Steve Giancaro, Paula Eldridge, Linda Rowell, Barbara Goddard, and Barbara Cornell.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Do we have Melanie here tonight, Mitch, or is it just?
So, Mr. Chair, the clerk is away at training this week, required training.
right.
She did again send this list forward, and she will do the final assignments based on availability for folks for that particular day, and that all of these individuals, if they do wish to proceed forward after this step, must attend that required training, which she will share with each of them. I think she may have already done that. So this does move us forward again based on her recommendation.
Thank you. So with that, if there's no more discussion, I'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lawyer,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. So Mitch will move on with the next process and get them going if they still want to go.
Correct. The clerk's office will take it from here with notifications and swearing in and training.
Sounds good. All right, with that, we'll move on to Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator updates, and we'll go to Mitch for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Working our way through the start of FY23, getting ready for fall town meeting. Your next meeting will be asking you to open the warrant. CPC just wrapped up their process today. They voted last meeting and they approved their financial distributions today. Government and bylaw has been very, very diligently working through all of their items and their articles to move forward. I think we'll see anywhere between 8 and 10 articles come from that group. So it will be a busy meeting. So we're working on logistics for that now and making sure that everything is ready as we move forward. We'll start doing the initial drafting on some of the articles imminently to get that ready. So right now it's just keeping things afloat. Continuing our hiring process. We have a number of open positions, much smaller certainly than the start of the summer, but still a few open positions. So we continue to try to recruit for those very actively. That's pretty much what we've assigned HR to be doing now. Nothing, almost nothing else, focusing on recruitment, really trying to focus on getting those positions filled across the board, including the 2 in this office. Would be really, really great, really helpful. So we are diligently doing that. DPW has been very busy as we make our way through the summer season. Certainly, kudos to Gary and Aaron in the director's office and all of their staff, particularly those folks in the business office, the folks who are fielding some of the initial calls. I see on a firsthand basis every day the great work that they do. And in many cases, the not always kind responses that they get back for things that are out of their control. And so I guess that leads to the next item that I have for discussion. I had shared with the board a snippet of a video from an interaction, just one of what's becoming kind of a pretty regular occurrence here in the building. Folks coming in for a variety of reasons and being unable to civilly interact with town employees. The video that I had shared with you, I needed to intervene at the treasurer's office with someone who was absolutely screaming. I could hear them in my office with the door closed. And when I went down, they were very, I think best way to put it is very unreceptive to my attempts to assist. We are seeing this on greater and greater frequency. Phone calls are always a challenge for the staff, but they are professional and they are patient. However, there are limits. But we're finding more and more in person now where folks are becoming extremely agitated and unwilling to engage on a civil level. And I don't mean disagreeing on something or not liking what the bill amount is from the treasurer's office. I'm talking about humiliating and demeaning the staff, being verbally abusive, attempting to be physically intimidating, which has been, we've seen an increase in that. It certainly is a challenge for the staff in the building. So I wanted to just make sure that, we're publicly sharing this. And I think, I know that there are certainly a lot of things going on in the world and it has caused increased stressors, but it is becoming all too common for verbal abuse of the staff. And I needed to make sure that the board is aware of that happening. And like I said, the last week it became very prevalent, and including having somebody be, I would say, overly physically aggressive when they were asked to not engage at that level in this building. So unfortunate. And I think that the board needs to be aware of what's happening on that front. And Mr. Chair, I see Cindy Grove's hand up. I'm going to assume she's going to say the same thing at the library.
You muted yourself. There you go.
Yeah, I would like to. We've had the same thing in the library. Patrons, our community members are in a state of crisis. Sorry, cat.
We're cat friendly.
Yeah. But our patrons are in a state of crisis. And I don't put the blame on them. I put the blame on the situation that they're in. And that things don't look like they're going to get better. And so I'm concerned about my staff. I'm concerned about my employees. And we're doing what we can as a library. And I'm sure the town hall is doing what they can as town hall employees. But I think this is something that the town needs to be really aware of, that a significant number of Rockport residents are in a state of crisis where they are kind of lashing out to town employees because we're here and we listen. So I just want to say that.
Thank you, Cindy. No, I can assure you that Mitch is, looking into ways to prevent these type of things. So, Selectman Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This saddens me. This is not okay. I spent 32 years as a school administrator, and I had some pretty upset parents, students, community members. And the way I handled it is when they would get boisterous and yell, and so if I'd give them 2 chances, otherwise the meetings ended. And a lot of times I ended the meeting because they weren't. I'm not going to be yelled at. It's not okay. No one in town hall or the library should be yelled at. I think that I'm glad we brought this up. You can't bar people. This is a public building and so forth. But if they can't conduct themselves in a manner that is civil and polite, then we got to do something about it. I think moving down the road, maybe we could get some training with our employees on how to handle situations where people are coming into town hall, the library, or wherever to diffuse it. But this is not okay, and I'm sorry this is happening to our employees. And I hope that we can do something and stay vigilant on this. And thank you, Mitch, for intervening on a situation like that. But hopefully other people will be able to do the same.
Selectman McDonald.
Yeah, thank you. It saddens me, as it does Paul, to hear these stories, and needless to say, it's quite distressing. I think we're all living at a heightened level of stress, I suppose the word is. But I hope Mitch and Cindy, if you could please express to your employees our gratitude for their patience and sticking with it, and that we are aware of what they're dealing with, and we very much appreciate their commitment to their jobs and to the town, and that we regret that they have to experience this.
Yeah.
I think training is a really good idea, but anything else that you can think of that we might be able to do to make sure that they know that we support them, and that, needless to say, they don't deserve to be addressed or treated that way.
Thank you. Anything else, Mitch?
Not at the moment, Mr. Chair. We'll certainly share the board sentiment, and it's appreciated. We're very fortunate to have excellent employees, and they are very cognizant of why someone may be coming in. In some cases, in many cases, people aren't always coming into the building for a positive reason. There's an issue with a bill. There's a problem with trash bags. There's a concern they need to report. So coming in often, we are expecting sometimes that people come in and are upset. And the staff is very good about that. So, we'll certainly look at what options may be there for additional training, and, we'll share the board's thoughts back with them. And again, it's always a last resort to ask somebody to leave the building or to remove them. And, we're very judicious in our use of anything along those lines, but it's reached a point where it's become an everyday conversation in the building with, at a minimum, the verbal interactions that are less than appropriate. And then, we've recently continued to cross into physical interactions, which are not great.
Not good at all.
Thank you. Any other updates from the board?
Oh, just really briefly, ditto on thanks to the DPW, Gary and his team. I think hidden somewhere on the website is my phone number for people to call with DPW requests, which I love. But I will say that Gary and his crew are like just ridiculously responsive this summer, and every concern I've relayed from a resident or things I've seen, they're like on it right away. So just Mitch, please pass that along. And I also got a huge compliment for our lifeguards, that they were someone lives locally and is a former lifeguard and manages lifeguards, and says that Rockport lifeguards are like the model for the whole North Shore. So I will put that into writing and send it off to the police chief tonight, but I just wanted to say it publicly as well.
Any other updates? And I'll apologize for keeping the meeting lengthy, but I have my opinions, and this is when I get to talk to all 5 of you. I can't just reach out individually to all of you. So I do think, telling me to reach out to the Board of Health, and we're the Board of Selectmen, we can set policies for certain things. I thought we should look at one, and that's what I wanted to mention and get everyone on the mindset of my thought process. So again, apologize for that. Apologize for repeating myself. But if someone tells me again that I didn't hear something that I was at a meeting I did hear, I am going to reaffirm my opinion. So again, sorry for keeping the meeting lengthy, but we're here to do the Board of Selectmen business, and I felt that I had to get that to the rest of the members. So with that, we'll move to the final public comment section of tonight. I see Jerry Shafstein up first.
Yeah, thank you. As a member of the Green Community Task Force, I feel that I need to bring this point up. It's been brought up a couple times earlier, and that is the vote that was taken at the last meeting with regard to Tom Meekus. I think it was unfortunate that all 5 selectmen were not available for the vote. And what I'd like to ask is that you reconsider and have all 5 of you vote on this issue versus 4. And I believe the vote was 2-2. So I think it's important that we get the vote of all 5 select persons on this issue.
Thank you, Jerry. Monica?
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to just thank you for your support of the Rockport New Year's Eve summer sampler event and Rockport New Year's Eve in general. Sue Russo is a new member of our committee, and she is such an energizer, really. We're so fortunate to have her involved. I did not want to miss the opportunity to mention that we are meeting to plan the December event. And just as a reminder, we always use the community house. It's an important venue for us. So we're very much looking forward to hearing whether it's going to be possible to use the community house this year. We are at the point of booking the performers, and the sooner we know, the better it will be for us. So we appreciate hearing as soon as possible on that.
Thank you, Monica. I will say that I did hear, I know another venue, Brackett hasn't got back to you guys yet, but I did hear from one of them that they'll be allowing that venue to be used. So you can pass that on to the rest of the committee. I know the email or letter hasn't been sent back yet, so you can pass that on to them so they know.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
Z?
Unmuted?
Yep.
Can you hear? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I was sorry that I was not able to get back onto the public comment after I had initially ended. I wanted to talk on one further thing, which was the appointment of the Aaron Battistelli to the DPW commissioners. That job, I was never aware that it was even vacant. I went to the town website for jobs and vacancies, last updated July 7th, and found that there was no vacancy listed for that. So I suspect if there might have been some professional engineer that works during the day, civil engineer, whatever, that might have been interested in it, he would have never gone to any of the DPW meetings held during the day, would have never heard it through that vine, would have no idea any other way that a vacancy existed, and that yet a person now was appointed from apparently because she was approached by a member that's currently sitting on the board. I think it's a poor way to get attractive candidates. Aaron Battistelli might be a good candidate, but I don't think that it's great. Her position is any much better by not having any other competition even aware of that. So I'll just say, I think that the process, once again, is pretty poor for getting talent on town boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Z. Toby?
Am I on?
Yep, you're on.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I have two concerns. The first is you mentioned that at your next meeting you open the warrant. At their meeting in December, the last meeting before the outbreak of the Wuhan flu, the Government and Bylaw Committee, meeting in the Town Hall basement, Conference Room A, resolved that they would be willing to hold proactive meetings to assist people who wish to draft citizen petition articles. That was not a formal vote of that committee, which has since changed in its membership, but everyone then present agreed. And I'm asking your board to reach out to Lori Kaiser and ask them to make good on their proposal and schedule such a meeting. They could do it at one of their regular meetings. I believe they have one coming up on August 8th. You want to check the date on that. And certainly you always say what a marvelous thing the town meeting is. Well, it may be a marvelous thing for you because you control the warrant, or 99% of it. But it's not such a marvelous thing for the people who do the petition articles who, with a fairly regular occurrence, fall on their noses, not having got the proper wording to their articles. So my request to you, speak to Lori Kaiser and get an announcement at your next meeting as to when the Government and Bylaw Committee will assist people. My second concern, going on from what Z. Seppala said about the appointment of Aaron Battistelli, which I find unfortunate. When you were talking about appointing somebody to the Board of Health, Herman Lilia went on at some length about professional qualifications. Nobody asked Aaron Battistelli anything about professional qualifications. And I'm sure she's intelligent and enterprising and cares greatly about the town. But we would do better, obviously, to have somebody with professional qualifications, as Z. Seppala referred to, an engineer. And I have two questions. I thought that it was the board's policy that when you made appointments the first time around, you nominated someone at one meeting and appointed them at the next, which gave the public a chance to comment. Do I have that wrong, or has that been changed? Is that still a board policy?
It may be in writing, I'm not sure, but I know last year we did
That's been
address that.
changed.
And we changed it, so we can get them both done in the same meeting.
Well, if it has been changed, that's a mistake, and you ought to change it back. Because it's not you that the candidates, whoever they are, serve, it's the town as a whole, and you want to hear whatever comment, flattering, unflattering, questioning, whatever, before you appoint the candidates, not after. Thank you.
Tom?
Hi, I want to follow up on Don Campbell's comment about bringing new people into boards, commissions, and committees. I agree with his goal. And I actually commend him for limiting himself to 2 terms. on the Board of Selectmen. And having chaired a couple of committees myself, I'm acutely aware of the issue of having shortage of members. And I need to point out to you that each of the 4 bodies on which I had served is 1 member short. And I think it is not in the town's best interest to create a second vacancy on any committee.
Thank you, Tom. Any other public comment? If not, we'll be moving to executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board enter executive session for the following. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief, and if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining, Local 1679 ASME, general and supervisors units. If an open meeting may have detrimental effects to the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we are entering into executive session because by not doing so, it would be detrimental to the town's negotiating positions. The board will not reconvene in open session. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. We are entering into executive session. Thank you.
Do we have like 5 minutes? Oh, a couple minutes.
Couple minutes.
Okay, at this time, the Board of
2.5
Selectmen's
minutes.
Board of Selectmen's meeting has, public portion has closed. The board is entering into executive session. We ask that you please exit the meeting at this time.